Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening to all of you. Uh, we have today with us Mr. Nitin Pai, who is the CMO and also the Chief Strategy Officer of TATA ELXSI. Thanks a lot, sir, for making time out of your busy schedule and enlightening us with the lecture that you are going to give. I understand it's going to be very interactive and very interesting. Before I hand over to Mr. Anirban Banerjee, who is an executive committee member of Calcutta Management Association, to take us throughout the session, just a small announcement. The participants they are joining us, but we'll not stop for them to join, but we'll let them join because there are people who are joining us not only through Zoom, but also through YouTube and Facebook. And in fact, there are a few institutes who are seeing it on their classroom. So we welcome all of you. Thanks a lot for joining. Just one small thing, as I have done it for the last webinar also, we'll be giving away the e-certificate links to all of you, but that will be given post the event. So after the event is over and you ask your questions on the chat box, which we'll be asking you after Mr. Pai speaks about the marketing strategy in the new world paradigm, we'll be asking you to give your questions on the chat box. And we might ask a few of you to ask questions directly to him, but that will depend completely on Mr. Banerjee and with CMA. But after that, before we end the session, we will ask you, all of you, to write your email IDs on your chat box so that we'll keep that and we'll send the e-certificate links to all of you after the event is over. So in between, I would request, there are a few students who have joined, I can understand. Please do not ask when the e-certificate link will be given. It will be given to you, to your email ID, which you will submit to us after this event is over. You will get ample time. Please do not worry about that. So may I request Mr. Anirban Banerjee, the Executive Committee member of Calcutta Management Association, to kindly take us through this session. Sir.
Good evening, Anirban. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for this start. Good evening, Mr. Pai, and good evening to all the participants in this third edition of the seminar. Now, let me a little bit talk about CMA before we start talking about this today's session. CMA, as many of you know, that it is one of the first management association in the country. We organize events across, related to managements across the board. And we have our own website, which is handles and website, which is basically www.cmakolkata.in. The updates are continuously there. So whoever wants to visit the CMA website can see what are the things happening there. We are also coming up with one management summit and that will be in the physical format after 3 years of COVID. And some of you can definitely attend that. So please get connected. Please stay connected with the CMA website, CMA Association. I'm sure all of you will be immensely benefited. Let me start today's session. As we all know, and all of us are somewhere or the other related to the management field, the increasing importance of segments of the empowered and skeptical consumers, coupled with the enormous advances in science and technology, and of course with the challenging and changing socio-economic realities, and across the world it is happening, have resulted in increased complexity and uncertainty in doing business. And all of us have faced this few years back when the COVID got into it. And this has actually thrown a new dimension of looking at things in a newer way and in a new angle, which we were looking little earlier than this. And everything is changing. One of the most critical thing in this particular journey is marketing. And we all know that marketing plays a very, very important role in creating demands and in getting customers or consumers to a business. So today's session is in that context of changing the marketing strategy in the new world paradigm. And when we want somebody to talk about it, who can be the better person than Mr. Nitin Pai? Let me introduce and formally welcome Mr. Nitin Pai to this session. Mr. Nitin Pai is the Chief Strategy Officer and CMO of TATA ELXSI. He brings over 30 years of industry experience in product development and R&D, new business incubation, and global marketing for technology and design services in the automotive, consumer electronics, media, and telecom industries. As head of global marketing and corporate strategy, he helps the company develop business and marketing strategies, steer business units and Tata ELXSI in select verticals and markets, and of course, drive strategic partnership to strengthen its service portfolio, value proposition, and business growth. He is also an alum of INSET, IIM Bangalore, and BITS Pilani. With this, I will not come in between you and Mr. Pai. Mr. Pai, I would request you to please take the session on. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anirban. If you can just give me a minute to share my screen. Marketers live and die by PowerPoint, so let me get mine up. And if you can just let me know that you can see my screen.
Yeah, we can see this.
Wonderful. So first of all, I would like to thank the Calcutta Management Association for inviting me to join for this session. I would like to thank the audience for having earmarked an hour or more today evening, a working day, right at the beginning of the week, in listening to me. So let me start with a few disclaimers first, right? The topic is too large. So I'll disclaim any great knowledge of knowing changing marketing strategy in the new world paradigm. So I would rather say that the ideal heading should be a practitioner and a learner's perspective to marketing and what's changing, right? So with that disclaimer, maybe I'll take you on a journey of my own experience and a little bit of what we do as a company, because I can only talk from first-hand experience rather than quoting from somewhere else, right? Phases of marketing, a quick look. Again, I don't want to get too theoretical, but fundamentally, if you look at the job of marketing, and if you believe that the job of a marketeer is to enable the discovery, awareness, and the creation of interest in a product or a service, and the ability to guide and lead that person or company to the point of sale. And your point of sale could be a retail outlet, it could be a shop that you have, it could be a site which allows you to complete a sale. So whatever that point of sale is, but steering and guiding that consumer to that point of discovery, awareness, and interest, leading to a sale itself, right? And then, of course, there is a journey post-sale where the consumer then really experiences whatever you've sold him, whatever product or service that is, and that experience then leads to further behavior, whether it is of buying again or of making it a transaction and a one-time buy, right? If I look at that in that context, for the largest time, we have dealt with direct marketing, right? Where you try and get that message across to persons of interest, if I may call it that. We've then, with the advent of advertising and print and so on and so forth, moved to mass marketing, where the idea was that rather than trying to find that particular consumer, I broadcast my message, I try and reach as large an audience as possible, and hope that the right audience is seeing or listening to my message and my spiel at the right time, right? And where we have seen the journey then further evolve to is digital marketing. And the whole advent of digital marketing comes from, of course, the point that all of us are online. All of us have a footprint that we leave digitally that tells the person on the other side who we are, what we represent, including our age, our sex, our, when I say sex, gender, our possibly geography, our location, the language that we speak. Think about it. So ultimately, if I needed to be able to find the right consumer in terms of how I segment consumers, all these are markers for what constitutes the right consumer for me, right? So depending on the segment that I chose, whether it is teenagers, whether it is salaried people working in urban environments, the ability is to go and be able to discover the right customer so that you can deliver the right message, right? Rather than broadcasting a message, broadcasting and spending money on advertising, and then knowing that there's only a 0.1% or 0.2% that is relevant to your audience, to your chosen segments. So to that extent, I think for me, this was the turning point, right? the recently concluded media rights. And what a moment. For the first time, you have broadcast rights being sold for a 5-year period for 23,575 crores. And you have digital rights for the ability to broadcast all the IPL matches going for 23,758 crores. Technically, digital rights surpassing the money that you would spend on broadcasting rights. Right? It's an amazing moment in terms of recognizing how far we've come. The power of digital in the whole aspect of marketing and so on, right? And why do I say this? Simply because, please note, the only way that you make money against this kind of spend that you have to gain rights is by carrying advertising. And therefore, the power of digital to be able to take that message to the right consumers, the right profile, the right time, is now starting to reflect in the kind of money that you pay, right? It also reflects the fact that digital is now truly standing on its own in terms of the ability to talk to consumers and drive demand, right? But it would be unfair to leave marketing as just about print and advertising and so on and so forth. I think there is a journey that marketing is taking now that crosses over. And let me explain that a little bit. So if you think about the job of marketing, and if the job of marketing was discovery, awareness, interest, lead you to the point of sale, and then hopefully at the point of sale, you'll make the right decision and go and purchase. The question is, can I also allow you to complete that purchase in that part of the journey? And how do I control that part of the journey? How do I control the experience at that point of the journey, right? Think about examples like this. If you think about your own retail buying, of course, a lot of us do a lot of the discovery, awareness, and so on online, right? Because there is free access to information. I can do all the research that I want to do about a car or about a particular piece of clothes that I want to buy and so on online. But then there are certain goods that you would go and buy online without a second thought, whether it's groceries or otherwise. There are certain things that you would want to go and buy at the retail showroom simply because there is an element of physicality to it, right? Digital can only go so far. There is a physical element of touch, feel, and look that cannot be fully realized in the digital world. And the journey for the marketer today is, how do you bridge that too? And COVID, of course, accelerated some of those. So if you think about buying spectacles, right? So whether it's a Titan Eye Plus or a lens cart, the ability to try on your spectacles with a virtual you, where you have a photograph taken, you can even get to an actual live video where the glasses move with you. You can actually get a sense of how it looks on you, thereby avoiding a trip to the showroom. Clothes, where you now have virtual changing rooms, right? Where there are certain experiments that are going on where you can now try on clothes against a digital avatar of yourself, and you'd get the cloth to drape correctly. You'd get the cloth to fall correctly, right? So this whole concept of virtual changing rooms, though you have still not got to the point of texture and feel and so on and so forth of the cloth. Another great example is in the whole context of jewelry buying, right? Where this, I will call it surrogate trial, where because of the fact that you could not go to a showroom and you could not try jewelry yourself, you could get onto a video call and the shop assistant would then try on the piece of jewelry for you, right? So you get, rather than a showroom or a showcase, you get the sense of how it looks on a real person. We've all experienced that in the case of saris, haven't we? You go to a sari showroom and there will always be this assistant who's going to, and most of the times it's a man, who's going to drape a sari on himself. And the whole idea is to give you a sense of the fall and how it would look when draped, rather than as it is shown to you on a shelf. So I think there is a whole aspect of marketing moving to allow customers to complete the journey, not just of discovery, awareness, and interest, but also complete the sale. Because otherwise, you truly risk the customer then getting interested in something else if you let them go at the point of interest. So is there a way to complete that journey or to facilitate that journey in any way, whether it is at the retail showroom or it is online? How do you allow the consumers to complete that journey, right? I think that's one of the big elements of what is happening with marketing and the use of technology in aiding this completion of the buying journey, right? Now, why all this? And if I step back, ultimately, marketing is about understanding consumers, right? And being able to identify pain points, being able to find products and services that meet and address those pain points and meet those needs. And then being able to demand that premium based on how much of that pain you address and how well you address it, right? How convenient to make it. And one of the fundamental challenges, in my view, for marketing has been the changing consumer behavior and preference, right? And here I'm not just talking of Gen Z. They represent a completely different paradigm, if I may say so. But fundamentally, if you look at our own psyche, it's been changing as consumers. Lack of patience. Time is money. So in that sense, there is this whole aspect of, look, I don't have so much time. My attention span is diminishing. So there's only so much time and so much attention that you can get from me before you make your pitch and you make your message. There is also this change, especially in India, because if you think about it, my father, my grandfather, even me to a great extent, bought and attached great value to durability, how long it would last, right? And the intent was that this should last forever. This should last me a lifetime. And I think that is fundamentally changing. We are perfectly fine with this whole spectrum of lasting from forever to lasting just for an occasion. And there is a whole journey in between, right? That's a very, very important change in consumer preferences and behavior that brands need to recognize. There is another important aspect in my view, especially when it comes to B2C sales, the sense of personal space. Earlier, we used to go to showrooms. You have this assistant who tags onto you. So you have this whole set of people who are waiting on the side, waiting for consumers or customers to walk into the showroom. As soon as they see somebody stepping in, somebody gets assigned. That person is supposed to hang around with you and make sure that he provides you hopefully helpful information, but essentially coaxing you to make a decision, right? And I personally, I'm not sure how many of you I speak for, I find that extremely invasive into my personal space. Because my whole aspect of discovery, awareness and interest, if it's happening digitally mostly, I have the free ability to walk into any showroom online. I can get out of it without having to explain, look, I don't like it, or no, by the way, I will come back tomorrow and so on. I don't have to make excuses. I can just get out, right? From that to move into a retail showroom where you have actual human who's intruding on you, interfering with your process of experiencing, touching, feeling, and absorbing information is irritating. In fact, we've been working with certain customers in terms of how do you bring in robotic assistants, right? For example, Bangalore Airport has robotic assistants where you have these robots that are moving around, providing you information at the tap of a button or through voice. Can you have robotic assistants that are helping you? So they're not really human. They're not intrusive. They'll help you only if you ask for it. Or can you have virtual assistants that are embedded into the product, where just next to the product, have some way of being able to have a conversation or being able to see a display that responds to the questions that I have.
Nitin, just sorry to interrupt you. Are you changing your slides or it is because...
No. So this
okay.
is a long speech on just this.
That's okay. That's okay. I just thought in case sometimes a technical error or something. Take it. Okay.
No, not at all. Not at all. Right. So for me, while I actually put down the point that digital marketing is now stepping into the big league, moving over broadcast and other mass media in terms of advertising, I think in my own reflection, the dimensions are much, much more than that. It comes from the point of changing consumer behavior and preferences, and how do marketers not only address and adapt to these preferences, but also allow the bridging of that whole journey of discovery, awareness, and interest to the point of sale and the consumption or the consummation of the sale itself, right? Continuing, and Anubhav, I've really changed slides now. The whole aspect of hyper-local or personalized marketing, and I've already talked of this, the fact that we leave a digital footprint in terms of allowing marketers to know us to the greatest extent, right? Our preferences, our choices, our age, our gender, our location, our language. All this allows you then to personalize at scale, right? Now, personalization at scale, again, I can pick two discrete examples, and again, things that we do. If you look at OTT, and we work a great deal with OTT video, we power the OTT experience for many of the providers that you watch today. And if you look at how the whole aspect of analytics in the background works and recommendation engines work, the point is to be able to understand who's watching it, what seems to be their pattern of watching, what they seem to have preferred, build a profile around that. So technically, though technology is prevented from knowing me personally and knowing my name, so there is some amount of anonymity provided by regulations and laws, there is still a way for digital technologies to develop a persona, to create a virtual avatar of Nitin Pai without knowing it's Nitin Pai, but they know almost everything else, including age, location, gender, what he's been watching before or she's been watching before. And based on all of this, the ability to now create a very, very personalized recommendation for me, saying, hey, Nitin, I think this is what you would like to watch next, right? If you think about it, it's fundamentally super personalized marketing to the level of one that's now being delivered to you through the recommendation that comes on a Netflix or an Amazon or Hotstar, right? So that's one way. If I took e-commerce, you have very similar personalized marketing that's being delivered through you when an Amazon or a Flipkart says, people also like this, or people also bought this along with this, right? Now, what is that people also bought? It's creating a persona for you, but then it's very, very quickly in the background, also mining through all similar people that fit certain criteria that align to what you're looking for and what you're trying to buy. And therefore, it is curating a very personal recommended tray of offerings. So it's going from a site that has millions of products to now a very personal tray that is based on it knowing who I am and to the extent that laws allow it, and then mining its own database for people that match my personas, right? And therefore trying to find similar avatars that allow it to recommend what they think is right for me, right? So this is another direction that's significantly impacting the nature of marketing and moving it from people dependent to fully delivered by technology, right? There are some nice examples too, right? In terms of how marketing has been done cleverly in other ways. This is something that I personally like, how Dineout tried to encourage the whole aspect of getting back to a restaurant, because the whole of COVID, you didn't step out of your home. You feared going to places where you had other public gatherings and so on, and you were trying to encourage that return back to restaurants, right? And the whole aspect of video ads, where you have somebody like a Kusha, who's a celebrity and a fairly known person, influencer, if I may call it that, to promote the Great Indian Restaurant Festival, and the clever way where you call out a name. And the idea is to pick up names that are very common, right? And depending on the region, so if you went to the south, you could say, hey, Krishnan, and hey, Ram, and so on. And if you went to the north, you would say, hey, Rahul, and hey, Adesh, and whatever else, right? And I thought that was brilliant. Why? Because it personalizes. It makes it look like it's a message for you. And if
I'm talking to you, I was scrolling, right? इधर उधर ना देखो, सिर्फ dine out पर देखो, because the Great Indian Restaurant Festival is back flat 50% of no terms and conditions applied body.
And for me, this was a very good example where you're still broadcasting, you're still not hyper personalizing, but you're starting to personalize in a slightly different way. You're using names and personalizing it through names that are common, and then allowing that to appeal to sets of people, right? The point being, there's immense room for innovation. Technology takes you part of the way. And I think how marketers use it and how that allows you to innovate on how do you reach the right audience and how do you communicate and connect with that right audience, I think is the real journey. Right? Coming to just shifting gears a little bit, a few other examples. For me, again, moment marketing, right? It may look gimmicky, but is there something topical that you can fit into and you can enable a conversation with, right? So Amul, of course, is a classic example where we have this fantastic medium of these Amul ads, which have been around for over, I believe, 30, 40 years now. But the ability to insert yourself into a conversation and to have a perspective of your own, the brand's perspective of what you think about it, right? I think are great ways to look at how marketing is done. Data-driven marketing, I think I've already covered a large part of it, right? Simply because of the fact that when I look at OTT and recommendation engines, when I look at e-commerce and recommendation that it makes, all these are mechanisms of using data at scale and real time and being able to enable both the discovery, awareness, interest, and the consummation of sale altogether, right? So for me, these are things that I've already talked about, and these are things that play already, right? Just moving to MarTech, again, I'm switching gears. Why? Because ultimately, I'm not a B2C marketer, right? I come from the B2B world. We are a company that works with other companies. We don't work with individual consumers. We do not have a product that an individual can walk into a retail showroom or into our office to buy. It ultimately is a corporate that we're addressing, and we're delivering services to them. And look at the scale and variety of technologies that we're now using in our own marketing stack, right? Right from who should you sell to? So there are customer databases that we acquire and you pay a lot of money for, to what content do you want to deliver to them? So you have very sophisticated content creation as well as content management solutions that build libraries for us, to how do you deliver this message? So whether it's LinkedIn, whether it's Facebook, or whether it's Google ads, banner ads in various sites, the ability to get to the right audience that you believe are out there for you and are relevant to you, and then being able to deliver that message, right? And then because you're trying to have these conversations millions of times every day across the world and through many media and mechanisms, so whether it's LinkedIn or Facebook, you also need a place where you can ultimately look at who are you having these conversations with? Is that working? Is that converting? Are you leaving something for your target customer to click on and express an interest, right? So you also have CRM stacks. You have things like HubSpot or Salesforce that all brings it together and allows you to track these leads through that journey of here is somebody who's discovering your product or service to somebody who seems to be a little more than interested. He seems to be at the point of making a decision, to the ability to actually reach him at the point of making a decision, right? Believe me, I'm on a learning journey myself. I should honestly acknowledge this. So we have onboarded a whole set of very young marketers who come with experience in marketing technologies and digital technologies. So a whole set of geeks, if you ask me, who are sitting alongside experienced marketers, trying to couple technology with insights, and then being able to make those right decisions of, are we reaching the right people? But equally importantly, how much is it costing us to reach them, right? There is also another thing that's happening where you're using your customers themselves to shape campaigns, right? And this happens many ways. And I can talk of many examples, but in our case, we're definitely using customers to allow us to create campaigns around them, right? Asking them about what makes you buy from us, what makes you stay with us, and how is it that you would express that to people similar to you. So whether it's referrals, whether it's the aspect of testimonials, or it's actual advertising that happens, you find that brands are more and more getting existing customers to help shape campaigns. In my mind, one of the most brilliant uses of this has been by Satya Nadella, and how he's used his conversations that are then broadcast globally with leading CEOs across companies that work with Microsoft, asking them questions. Not so much about saying, how does Microsoft help you? It's about, how is your business? How does technology impact your business? What do you see for the future? And of course, because of the fact that you're having this conversation with them, they are going to insert you into their conversation, right? Fantastic example of collaboration, co-creation of marketing and marketing campaigns by getting customers to work with you on these, right? Moving to the point of B2B, right? And I wanted to make this point. Why? Because I don't claim any great experience or expertise on B2C. I may, but I don't want to. B2B is fundamentally different because you're selling to not an individual, but to a company. The number of buyers involved are many, sometimes right up to 10 decision makers across different personas, right? There is the actual user, there is a procurement person who is the gatekeeper, there is a senior executive who's going to sign on to the budget, there is an executive who's going to take a call on the appropriateness of the decision that is being made. So in that sense, you have multiple people involved, but also different personas, right? And in many ways, you're going through the journey of recognizing needs, definition of needs, the search for suppliers, evaluating proposals, making decisions. So in some sense, the journey is very similar to B2C, discovery, awareness, interest, and point of sale. But here, you're making the journey with multiple people, all coming with different perspectives, right? And the pain points are different. So for potential customers, it could be the fact that they do use vendors today. It's unreliable, it's not working out, it's expensive, or I have too fragmented a landscape for ourselves. I would really not want to deal with so many vendors. I would like to simplify my own process of consumption. Or for existing customers, it could be other things. That look, the lack of speed, or the whole process of buying and consuming that service is too painful. Or I'm not getting a real sense of, are you, the final users in my company who are actually consuming the service, benefiting from what you're delivering, right? How do I get that feedback back from my consumers, right? And so on and so forth. So I'm just shifting gears again. I'm being respectful of time. So what marketing means to TATA ELXSI. So this is where I really come to how we are working around it. Of course, point number one, ultimately for us, customers are partners, because in the consumption of services, it is not something that is ready-made. It is not made there, prepared there, and then you can have somebody who comes in, evaluates and says, look, this just about fits my bill and let's buy this. Services is really about selling a promise of what will happen if they sign us on. Right? And if I were to use an equivalent example, it's like Urban Club, right? Or Urban Company as they're called now. So you actually sign up for a haircut, but the real experience is when somebody actually comes to your home, sets up, and then actually cuts your hair. The real experiences and the real consumption of the service is when it is delivered to you after you've already paid for it or made the decision to buy, and not before, right? So to that extent, it's incredibly important to be able to onboard customers onto the journey that they're going to take along with us, right? And therefore, this whole aspect of partnership. In marketing terms, rather than return on investment, because there is one way to measure, which is how much dollars did I spend? And find, by the way, at the end of it, how much dollars of revenue did I earn? Yes, that is true. That is the ultimate measure of return. But more and more, I think in B2B, as well as in TATA ELXSI, we're getting to return on engagement, which is, are you having conversations? Because not all sales are going to conclude today. it is not that that person is waiting to buy a car. He may already have a car. So you're now starting a conversation in order to get them to be interested when they're at the point of when they want to change the car. Right? I'm just using a simple analogy. So the idea is that you'll have to engage, you'll have to create awareness, you'll have to make sure that they recall and remember you when they're at the point that they're interested in what you offer. So we are now starting to spend a lot of time in trying to be able to measure engagement, right? Which is in terms of leads, in terms of the number of conversations that we're having, the journeys that customers are making, how many of them are returning to listen to our conversations again. So that is the whole journey that we are on. A lot of our marketing now is shifting to conversational marketing. So it's not one of those, here's my message, take it or leave it. I'm going to keep talking. I'm not sure if you're listening. So we're getting to the point of creating experiences. So we have this whole concept of tech days, where we take everything that we do and we actually go and set this up at the customer's headquarters. And we invite people to walk in and to experience TATA ELXSI. So rather than them having to fly 5,000 miles from wherever they are on the West Coast of the US or in the Nordics, we will bring TATA ELXSI to you. And you'll get to meet real people. You'll get to see the kind of work that we do, and therefore experience us as how you would see us in your journey. The other thing that we're doing is also moving to design thinking workshops, where we're saying, look, we also need to be able to co-create along with you. And therefore, can we help you think through what you want us to work with you on? Can we find better ways of doing this? Whether it is going to involve us or not, are there better ways of doing this? We are doing tours of our design studio. So all these are about experiential and conversational marketing, right? And in some sense, leading into that whole creation of evoking of an emotion, right? Because in textbooks, typically B2B is supposed to be emotionless. B2C is supposed to be full of emotion. You're allowing people to build and express emotions in their buys, while B2B is supposed to be very logic-led and corporate as a decision. That's not true anymore. We're finding that there are whole layers and elements of emotions that go into decision-making, even on the B2B side. And it's a question of how do we appeal to that? And of course, lastly, since the whole services business and B2B business is about not just winning customers and creating transactions, but retaining customers and growing along with them, there's a whole aspect of account-based marketing that we are investing in, which is you're not trying to reach many customers, you're trying to get to that one customer and trying to cross-sell, upsell, and sell more, right? And how do we do this? Of course, multiple mechanisms, lead generation, brand campaigns, conversation or conversion campaigns, sustenance programs. I don't have to explain all of this. All of you intuitively would understand this. In B2B context, think of it this way. In B2C sales, you have this whole role of word of mouth, right? Where typical buying, if you're buying a car, etc., you would want to ask your neighbors. You would want to ask other buyers who have had the same car and so on, what their experience is. Now, how do you use influencers, whether it's in digital campaigns or testimonials, as we call it in B2B, which is you get customers to speak about their experience with you, and the ability to have that transmitted to other similar buyers, right? You have this whole concept of references, where you're getting customers to say, look, even if you want to come on a public forum and talk about us, are there people that you think in your network you would want us to work with, that you can refer us to? And you create loyalty programs and rewards for that, right? So there are dimensions of what you have in B2C that you try and adapt to B2B. They take on slightly different dimensions. There are different aspects involved here, but that is essentially what we are on. But I wanted to move beyond this to some of the journeys that we have been on with customers too, right? And how we have pushed the boundary of marketing. And I'll take 2-3 examples. This is a good one, because if you look at the Taj Mahal Hotel, fantastic property, a heritage property in Mumbai, built right at the turn of the 1900s, has history to it. The kind of people that have walked through the corridors of the Taj Mahal Palace, right from prime ministers and presidents of countries to film stars and personalities, whether it's athletes or so on. So there are stories there, right? So ultimately, what is a hotel about? There is one view which says, look, it's just a place where you rest your head. 8 hours of sleep, a hot shower, a good breakfast, and out. And there is another which says, look, you can take it all the way to emotion and experience, which is about what that tells you as stories. And the Taj Mahal Hotel had this very old man. He spent his lifetime in the Taj Mahal Hotel. So he knew stories there in terms of who came there. Look, this is the place where we hosted King Charles, and this is where the prince talked to us, and this is where Marilyn Monroe came, and so on and so forth. Right? So there are stories. And depending on the interests of guests and who talked to him, he would take them on a small journey, saying, okay, tomorrow, 10 o'clock, meet me in the lobby, and then I will take you on a short tour to tell you a little bit about this whole hotel, right? And the kind of things that it has seen over the last 100 years and more. Question was, can this now be packaged into an experience? Because you're completely otherwise dependent on one, the availability of that person, the time, and so on and so forth. So the question was, can you take that unique experience, package it, and now allow many more people to deliver that story, but in a very structured, truthful, authentic way? And we worked with the Taj to actually build this heritage walk that could now be not dependent on just that one person, but could now be structured, but still stay authentic, right? This is marketing. Why? Because you're appealing to the emotions and that sense of storytelling to the guests who stay there, which makes them want to come again. So it becomes more than a place to rest your head, to take a hot shower and have a breakfast. It becomes a place which tells stories, which appeals to you. Another example, I know that it's 7:12, so I'm not going to take too long. Another great example that I remember was where we worked with Taj Hotels again. And I'm trying to take these examples simply because these will be understandable by absolutely anybody. So we had this problem where one of the hotels in Mumbai, one of the premium hotels in Mumbai from Taj Group, came to us saying, look, we've been having this problem about banquet sales. Now, let me explain banquet sales. It's the ability to sell their venues, the large conference halls and wedding halls that they have, along with food and service for events, right? And this whole aspect of banquet sales. So we've been having this drop in our banquet sales year after year, simply because there is so much more competition and we are not able to engage consumers, get them to come and host events at our place. What can we do? A simple marketer's view would have been to say, look, let's redesign brochures, let's go digital, let's go online, let's create videos. We said, look, that's not the way to look at it. We'll have to step back and look at the typical journey of what happens when you try and sell this service. Who comes to you? How do they discover your service? What do you sell? How does the decision-making happen? And therefore, you can then decide where marketing should intervene, right? And we actually did this design-led view of the customer journey. And then we found very interesting things. Typically, people definitely do their research online. They would make calls and talk to 3-4 hotels, just checking what is the kind of halls you have, how many people will it accommodate, what kind of food do you serve, how much will it cost per plate, extra. Ultimately, you'll make a visit to the venue, right? Because you want to see it. You still don't want to trust only online photographs and videos, especially if it's a big event, something like your daughter's wedding or so on. You definitely don't want to rely on pictures and what's told to you on the web alone, right? Like my experience with Airbnb, where the pictures are far, far better always than the reality, right? And what we realized was that at the point that people come actually to the point of sale, which is to actually come and examine, come and have a conversation, come and negotiate, that is where the experience starts to degrade. Because from the hotel side, you're trying to upsell. Say, look at this venue, look at this beautiful place. Here we'll be able to see it and so on. While the customer is saying, look, aap kya bol rahe hain? If you'll excuse my lapsing into Hindi, I've talked to Trident, 23 items de rahe hain, papad de rahe hain, ye de rahe hain, wo de rahe hain, 2,300 rupees per plate. Aap sirf 21 items de rahe hain, 2,500 rupees per plate. So what's happening is on one hand, you're trying to sell an experience. On the other hand, the customer on the other side is reducing it to a transaction and a quantitative discussion, right? So our intervention was actually to redesign that entire journey, right from when you have that conversation, what kind of paper should you have? What kind of checklist that makes it look like you're not taking notes on a scrap of paper that you found somewhere, but you have a very formal process that ensures that I understand what your needs are and so on. To my discussion about what kind of food, right? And then I ask you questions. I'm just not interested in knowing what kind of menu you're interested in. I'll ask you a few more questions. By the way, your daughter's wedding, wonderful. Do you have guests who would be Jains? What is the bridegroom side like? What kind of food preferences would they have? And then you very cleverly insert a moment where, if you, depending on how you see the customer in their decision making, you invite the executive chef to drop in for a second. Imagine the experience of meeting the executive chef of the Taj Group. And he drops in saying, hello, Mr. Customer. Wonderful that you're considering us. Oh, I understand from my colleague that this is the kind of wedding and this is the occasion and this is your preference and so on. He would ask a couple of questions. He would tell you, look, I would recommend, I will make the special thing for you. Suddenly, what you've done is you've changed the conversation of 23 items and 2,300 rupees versus 21 and 2,500 to what is the experience going to be and how I and the Taj Group are going to make sure that that event that you're hosting is absolutely memorable. Everything else follows. The brochures, the online pictures, the videos, how I communicate with you, the checklist that I create, everything else follows, right? So you've fundamentally changed the process of buying, the process of discovery, awareness, interest, and sale, and you've inserted an element of marketing into each of that customer interactions, right? So that was a beautiful example for me. Unfortunately, the pictures don't represent it, right? Equally, we have these wonderful experience centers that we create where we allow brands to talk about what they do and what they represent. The best example, if I may say so, is what we helped Tata Sons with. So if you ever visit Bombay House, which is the headquarters for Tata Sons, you'll find that there's an experience center that encapsulates the 150 plus years of Tatas. The stories that the Tatas have to tell you, whether it is the formation of the group, the contribution to social causes, to the meeting of Mr. Tata with Swami Vivekananda and how they took a journey together on a ship. So there are fantastic, wonderful stories over the history of 150 years that can never be told through words, but can be told through a combination of content, of interactive messaging, of people, and of technology. And that is something that we create, right? So I'm going to jump. I know that we have 10 minutes left away. So key takeaways for me: marketers should anticipate customers' future needs, and therefore this whole aspect of being able to walk along with customers in their current journeys, understand where marketing can intervene. Don't restrict marketing to advertising, but look at it as co-creation of the service or the product itself. The point that customers want solutions to their problem, not just more information about your brand. So their awareness that, look, they're coming from their context, not yours. The fact that technology will drive transformative change in marketing, whether it's chatbots or ChatGPT. The fact that we ultimately, as humans, are storytellers and listeners of stories. So to that extent, how do you engage with audiences? How do you use interactive storytelling better? I'm not going to go to metaverse. We are doing some work there. But how do you use immersive and engaging content and messaging? And of course, my last takeaway, forget the 4 Ps that you learned of marketing: product, promotion, price, and position. Let's look at E: engagement, experience, exclusivity, and emotion. And if you think of the examples that I gave you, whether it's the bank-based sales and Taj or the heritage walk, you'll find that each of these elements are reflected in the way you market. How do you engage with customers? How do you create an experience? How do you make it exclusive? Personalize it. And how do you evoke the right emotions? I'm sorry, my voice is giving away. So some final thoughts. I'm just going to let you read this while I drink some water. I'm typically a fast reader, so I tend to go through this very, very quickly, but I'm going to stop sharing here. I'm just going to let you know that those final 2 slides were not me. They were ChatGPT, right? So I simply, when this whole conference came up, in fact, today morning, I just went and typed there, what is the future of marketing? I am seriously concerned, right? Whether there's a future for marketing, and there was ChatGPT telling me that there is, yes, a future to marketing and marketers, right? So with that, Anirban, I'll hand over back to you. I hope the session has been useful in some form.
So thank you, Nitin. Before I start the next session, I would say in your when you were articulating the presentation, you spoke about lack of patience. And I can assure you that the entire audience or the people who are listening to you, 100 plus I can see, they were absolutely, I'm sure they must have not even got out of their chair also, because the session was so enriching. And I would say it is something which articulated so well about a topic which I'm sure all of us are trying to understand more and more in detail. So I think thank you for that. A couple of pointers which I wrote before I tried to take you through the questions which was asked. So I think it's a very good point, when you spoke about the change of the marketing paradigm, like from direct marketing to mass marketing and now digital marketing. I mean, that's the way things are changing. And not only that, while because of the changing of the consumer behavior, today we are talking about things like a co-creation. This co-creation word is becoming very strong in marketing. Today we are co-creating marketing campaigns, we are co-creating products, we are co-creating processes and everything. I think that's a power of the change or the demand which the consumers are actually putting forward in front of us. Even the data mining, what you spoke, that yes, I think today it's just like an open book. I mean, wherever you go and you travel a path and suddenly you open your Google map, you see which path you went through. So everything is being tracked, and you are being actually directed to the right place. And I think everything is changing and changing very fast, be it a B2B or a B2C. And a couple of pointers, I think, which really touched me in this presentation is like you spoke that customers are not only the king, but they are partners. I think that is the kind of bonding you are talking. And we used to talk earlier days as a marketing and sales guy, return on investment. But today we're talking what you spoke on return on engagement. Yes, that is the kind of change we are looking, and it's looking across. I mean, be it you spoke about be it a virtual trial or even the other thing, Netflix or whatever. I think these are some of the things which is very, very important. Even the other point which you spoke about, empathy and experience-led marketing. It's no more. Earlier days it used to be just a product and an offer. You give a discount and that's it. People will start moving towards it. But today it is not like that. Are you creating an experience? Your last examples were really something towards that when you talk about an experience zone, when you talk about an experience about in a hotel, I think really, really great. I think all these pointers, I would say that this really opens up a new dimension, a new way of thinking for all of us. So Nitin, we had a lot of questions which has come forward for you, but I will take some of the questions which maybe because of the paucity of time, but I thought it's very relevant to the topic which you are talking. So one of the questions that in embracing personal space, aren't customers divulging their persona in public? How do we draw a balance?
Right. And that's a very, very good point. I think there are two aspects to it, right? One is of the person revealing that information and their comfort with revealing that information. And two is what the law says, because the person may or may not be aware of the fact that they're leaving a digital footprint, right? And I think that there are significant changes that are happening globally on both fronts, right? On one hand, we make conscious decisions to allow marketers to register and capture our information simply because we like things free. So if you look at the whole concept of subscription-driven video versus advertising-led video, and therefore Netflix and paying 600 rupees per month to Netflix versus watching Hotstar in a freemium mode for free, what are you doing? You're trading your information for the service that you're trying to consume. Right? So to that extent, that is me exercising my choice. And of course, I may or may not be aware that that's what is happening. So to that extent, there is regulations that are coming in, and especially in Europe, which is extremely sensitive about privacy and the space, personal space of subscribers and consumers. You have extremely strong regulations that are coming in about anonymizing and first of all, anonymizing. So there will be no way to track and trace that this is Nitin Pai. I can tell everything about me except who I am and where I am, right? So there is a way to anonymize. So that is the bare minimum that is demanded from technology. But I think it's also moving to a point of where you have explicit rights given to allow people to use your information or not, right? So I think that is naturally a course that will have to run its way. Why? Because please note, all this is just evolving. So you'll have to allow laws and regulations to catch up. Equally, you'll have to allow the pain of knowing what it costs when I give away my information just so that I could watch video free for both parties to learn the lessons. So I think it's just a matter of time.
Very rightly said. Very right. It's just a matter of time. And we all are evolving in that. This next question was that in recent years, performance marketing has been introduced. Please put a spotlight on the same about performance marketing. What is your thought?
I think, and again, please note, like I gave my disclaimer right at the beginning, I am a learner and a practitioner myself. I think the point we are getting to is that we are spending enormous money. It does seem like digital marketing is so effective and so cheap, if I may call it that, right? Because at a unit cost, it seems so cheap. Creating an advertising campaign, you will spend 3-4 months working with an advertising agency, signing on a brand ambassador, maybe a movie star or a sports personality. You would create a video, then you decide which channels and which times it would go into. You would book those slots, you would run those slots, and then you would wait for customers to walk in. It looks like both time and money spent is huge, vis-a-vis digital marketing, where it looks like, look, I can run the ad, I can change the ad every day, and I can reach 100 people today based on my budget, I can reach 200. On one hand, it seems like unit economics are very simple, but the reality is that you can burn through more money than you would spend on broadcast rights and broadcast typical campaigns without getting anything close to the similar returns, right? So in my view, performance marketing is simply about how do you keep fine-tuning, keep measuring, tracking, and fine-tuning the mix of marketing methods that you're using and your spend against each channel till you get to the point of optimum returns. There is nothing like best. It's only a question of optimum. And that's my view of performance marketing. And that's exactly the journey we are on. I can tell you it's a journey every day.
Yeah, it's a journey. Actually, it's a journey every day. Every day morning, you learn something, and in the evening, you unlearn again. Being the moderator, I will also take a liberty to ask 1 or 2 questions, basically. You spoke about innovations in marketing. And so a question on what are the innovators' dilemma?
I think the biggest one would be, do you use technology as an enabler? And I'm just giving my personal view. Do you use technology as an enabler, or do you become a slave to technology? Right? Because it's very, very easy to be overwhelmed by what is available out there and what seems to be like magic, if I may call that, right? Of marketing and how you reach consumers. So the ability to make very sensible, practical decisions on how far to go, what to use, what makes sense, and always coming back to the consumer and understanding and figuring out through a feedback loop whether it is effective enough. For me, I think in my view, from a marketer's perspective, that's the biggest dilemma.
I think very well. The next question, we have been hearing something for quite some time, that is diversity, equity, and inclusion. And these 3 words are going around. How does it impact the modern marketing strategies, the strategies which you are talking about? Does it impact the marketing strategies in today's modern world?
I'm sorry, the question may be a lot more nuanced than I can think, because in my view, the fact that you're moving to, think about it this way. What is inclusion? So when I look at inclusion, if you were to compare print versus broadcast versus digital, The simple inclusion and exclusion would be based on who has access to this medium. So if you're illiterate, print has no meaning. If you don't have a TV or you don't watch TV, broadcast has no meaning. And if you don't own a mobile phone and you don't browse, the digital part has no meaning, right? So to that extent, I would pass this question because it's a difficult one to understand what folks really meant, right?
Correct.
I can simply put it as, look, this is a fantastic world where the fact that I can hyper-personalize anything that I deliver to you to the point of knowing who you are, making sure that it is your name and your language that I speak in, I think is a matter of inclusion rather than anything else.
And the last questions, what I will ask is that how testimonials help in shaping campaigns?
Oh, testimonials are very simple, right? Because forget B2B and so on and so forth. Simply look at what is the journey of your own decision making as a consumer, as a buyer, right? You are expressing a certain trust in the decision that you make. It's a leap of faith. Any time that you buy anything, it's a leap of faith. If you're buying a fruit, it's a leap of faith that when you cut open that fruit, it is good inside. That what you bought is tasty, right? If you bought a car, the leap of faith is that it performs the way you thought it was. It'll deliver the mileage that it did. It will not break down too often and so on and so forth. It's a leap of faith because ultimately you buy that product, that particular piece, you can never tell. And what do you do to bridge that leap of faith is that you rely on some mechanisms of creating trust. So what is that? How is trust created? Typically, you would create trust by going and asking your neighbors. Aapne khaya kya? Aapne idhar gaye the kya? Did you buy this? Do you buy from so on and so forth? How was your experience with these kind of mangoes? Whatever the question is, you're relying on somebody that you know, that you believe in, would not lie to you, would give you a fair, accurate representation of the truth, and then ask for their opinion. Testimonials are that.
Thanks a lot. Thanks, Nitin, for this lovely session. And I'm sure that the entire participants really benefited from this enriching session. Thanks to CMA for framing this session and making all of us go through this particular oration. Thanks a lot. And CMA Secretariat for all the organizing in the back end. In the technological world, it is very difficult to get everything ready and running at the right time, right thing. So thanks a lot, Anirban and the Secretariat for all this help. And thanks to all our participants for being there from the beginning and till now. Thanks a lot once again. Thanks, Nitin, from all of us for this lovely session. Thanks a lot.
Thanks to all of you, and thanks to Mr. Pai for becoming a member of CMA. We'll send you your welcome letter very soon.
Thank you. I thought
welcome.
That should be the expression that I have for my leap of faith.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir. Thanks.
So welcome.
Thanks
welcome.
a lot. Nice example to close off with. Thanks a lot, sir.
Goodbye.
Have a good
Thanks
day.
a lot. Thanks a lot, everybody.
Request all of you to please put your email IDs on the chat box, on which we'll be sending the e-certificate links in 2 days' time. Please send it. Please write it down. We'll keep this portal open for another 1 minute only.